Hello there. This is James, and you're watching OneRoyal, and it's live. In today's program, I want to just quickly discuss a very exhausting week for the market and how we're beginning to see a standard practice by the Trump administration. As well as that, a little teaser to what we can look forward to next week. But before we get into all of that, don't forget, these little videos are for educational purposes only, and in no way whatsoever should it be taken as financial advice. I always suggest you do your own research, do your own due diligence, and of course, there are the risks at hand before entering any trade. With it out of the way, let's get started. So, it has indeed been a very exhausting week for the market, especially over the recent couple of trading sessions when there's been a lot of fear that the United States was a moment away from entering the Israel-Iran conflict. However, we've got another countdown. And I'll tell you why I mean by another countdown. Okay? Is because Trump has signaled that he wants to give diplomacy a chance before deciding whether to strike Iran. He's basically given himself 2 weeks to decide if the United States are going to get involved in Iran. He said this: based on the fact that there is a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether to go in within 2 weeks. However, Iran has maintained today, this is by the president of Iran, said he will not negotiate with the United States while Israel's assault continues. So this turns to another party who could possibly negotiate something to try and get some sort of ceasefire or some sort of stop to this conflict. And this is where the UK, France, and Germany is coming in, because both the UK foreign minister and the French foreign minister and the German foreign minister are holding talks today with their Iranian counterparts in Geneva in the effort to try and ease the Israel-Iran conflict. Is there a possibility of this happening? Like I say, it's in negotiations today to hopefully try and find some sort of buffer, some sort of ceasefire, some sort of agreement to prevent the hostilities. However, in my mind's eye, I think it's a matter of time, because to be fair, the United States also has to get Israel on board as well. And Israel only tends to listen to the United States, not the UK, not France, not Germany. But anyway, at least there is that glimmer of hope that there is some sort of negotiations possible. Which leads me on to why I'm saying this is yet another deadline. Because if you think about it, if you look at this is sort of the standard practice of the Trump administration, which we have seen over the last, well, not just in this term, but previous term as well, where he would say something, some sort of pending decision, okay, and the market then expects it to be instant, because it is totally instant. You say, right, this is going to happen, and I'm going to do this. But then it gets delayed and set a deadline. So another 2 weeks, okay, it's becoming a little bit of common practice by the Trump administration. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing to have 2 weeks to think about getting involved in the Israel and Iran conflict. I think it's a good thing to delay it, because if the United States do get involved in this conflict, then we're looking at a totally different situation, which would not be good for the market or for people in general, because it's a conflict. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just becoming one of these things which is almost certain that Trump's going to do. And here's the other thing, which I want to bring up. This means the next 2 weeks could prove to be very interesting. Now, there's a reason why I say that. First of all, of course, obviously 2 weeks for President Trump to decide whether or not to get involved. But as well as that, we had the 9th of July coming up. 9th of July. Again, it's another, those of you who may not watch the program on a regular basis, the 9th of July is when the reciprocal tariffs kick in. Remember? On Liberation Day, April the 2nd, Trump announced a number of reciprocal tariffs on a good number of countries. And then on the 9th of April, he said, I'm going to delay it for 90 days to organize some trade deals, to negotiate. And that is fast approaching the 9th of July. It is fast approaching. And here's the question I have, and maybe you guys, good people, could shed some light on this and help me with this question. Where are the deals? Like I say, we're going to have a really interesting 2 weeks, not only because it's going to give the Trump administration time to decide if they're going to get involved in Iran, plus gives the chance to the UK, France, and Germany to try and negotiate something to try and end the hostilities. But then we have the 9th as well. So where are the deals? We've had one partial deal with the UK. And like I've said time and time again on this program, that was the easiest deal to make because the surplus or the trade surplus is very low. But where are the deals? Japan, a Japan trade negotiator, is, negotiating with the US. One of the many countries negotiating with the US to try and sort out some sort of trade deal before the 9th. They've described this trade talks as like walking in fog. Walking in fog. So again, there is no indication or no light at the end of the tunnel that we are going to have these certain trade deals. And like I've said before, the EU in particular, that's going to be a tricky one. China, of course, is another one. So we are running out of time. And the big question is, what's going to happen on the 9th? Is he going to go and give himself another 2 weeks maybe for this as well? Or is he actually going to be, as long as nobody says taco to him, and those who don't know what I mean by that, go back and look at some of the videos when I talk about the taco trade. As long as nobody says that, then maybe he might delay it again or extend it again. In fact, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent did suggest that some countries will get a delay. But again, at the same time, Trump also said he will send out letters telling countries, this is what you got to pay, like it or lump it, so to speak. Anyway, it's not just Trump who wants to wait and see, it's someone else who wants to wait and see. And that, of course, is the Fed wants to wait and see, because once again, they've held interest rates the same, which was pretty much anticipated, was what everybody expected. However, where is Trump? I'm like, again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing he's going to wait and see about getting involved in Iran, but whereas it's okay for Trump to go and wait and see, it's different for them. Because once again, Trump has attacked Powell, obviously, for delaying or for not, in his opinion, making a stupid mistake by not reducing interest rates. Once again, this is becoming, a pretty much stable type of thing. We see it all the time with interest rate decisions. The Fed makes an interest rate decision, holds horses like we all expected, and then the following day, they get attacked, or Powell in particular gets attacked by Trump. And this is what he had to say. He said, too late, Powell is costing the United States hundreds of billions of dollars by not cutting rates. He just went on to say this. He is destructive and a real dummy. Charming. But Powell, in his defense, this is what he had to say as well. This is during his press conference when the Fed decided to keep interest rates. He said this: for the time being, we are well positioned to wait to learn more about the likely course of the economy before considering any adjustments in our policies. Powell went on to say this: the size of tariff affects their direct size of the tariffs. Excuse me 1 second. Sorry about that. 1 second. Anyway, as I was saying, Powell went on to say this: the size of the tariff effects, their duration, and the time it will take are all highly uncertain. So that is why we think the appropriate thing to do is to hold while we learn more. He also went on to say this: ultimately, the cost of the tariff has to be paid, and some of it will fall on the end of the consumer. So basically what he's saying, at the moment, we have not seen the true effect of tariffs. And he has a valid point, and I've said this before in my other broadcast. I don't think we've yet to see the real effect yet, because we haven't. And then the economic data, inflation hasn't gone up as much as we anticipated or as the market expected. But bit by bit, we are beginning to maybe see the effect of tariffs. And let me start off with this question. For example, retail sales. Now, retail sales, okay, it was announced on Tuesday at negative 0.9%. 0.9%, which, again, if you can see this little in the chart here, obviously we had a rocket in 2 months previous. That's because everybody tried to get in and buy stuff before the tariffs came in. Now the tariffs are here, everybody's backing out. So this is why the tariff rally for retail sales is dropping off. So again, and the big drop off with the retail sales was gasoline, cars being purchased, and building materials, which makes sense. Cars, they were looking at 25% tariff on cars, and you're looking at 25% on steel and aluminium, and obviously timber from Canada as well. Got tariffs. So this is why we're seeing that. So bit by bit, we're beginning to see it. There's another thing as well I want to bring up, which the market, in my opinion, hasn't made a big deal of or not really talking about. It's not really talking about. Because yes, it's not headline data. It's not headline job data. This is not headline data. But this, in my opinion, is a worrying sign. And that's continuing jobless claims. Now, those who are not familiar, because there's two types of data comes out every week, okay, for job market, okay? You have US initial claims, which tends to be more of the headline news, where the market pays more attention to. And that's the number of new people who are signing on for unemployment benefit for the first time. Now, that was announced pretty stably, 245,000, like the previous number, so it's steady. It's like the same amount happening. Continuing jobless claims, however, is the number of people who are still signing on to unemployment benefit, are still signing on to it, still claiming it, which means they're the people who can't find a job or stuck in unemployment. And now this number is continuing to rise, and it's the highest level since 2021, when we were just coming out of the COVID crisis. So what this is saying to me, just slowly but surely, the labor market is not necessarily collapsing, but because of all the uncertainty we're getting on the market, employers are being more and more reluctant to hire people. So that's why that labor market, those people are stuck, continuing to claim unemployment benefit. So anyway, like I say, the market didn't do a song and dance about it, didn't really register it. But to me, like I say, because it's not a big job data, but to me, there's an underlying thing with that. So maybe, just maybe, Powell is right. Maybe we are going to start seeing the effect on tariffs. As for the market, like I say, it's been an exhausting week for the market, and the market is trading sideways. It's not been terribly exciting. Be a lot of uncertainty, but we haven't seen massive movements. Oil, again, we go to the market and have a look at the moment. Oil is hovering around, it's not near a 5-month high, and gold is dropping off. And in fact, it looks like my beloved yellow metal. I love gold. It looks like it's set for its first weekly drop this month. And the reason for that really is obviously because the safe haven demand is starting to ease a little bit. I mean, demand was rampant for the yellow metal when obviously Israel and Iran conflict started. And then with all the uncertainty. But now the market sort of calmed down a bit with the fact that Trump is going to wait for 2 weeks, means the safe haven demand is slowly disappearing. And because of this, there is basically a split opinion about gold's future. And there is a debate on whether or not gold's bull run is over. And I will talk about that in a minute, in my view as well. Now, Goldman Sachs, they stand by their original prediction. They still predict that gold will be hitting $4,000 by 2026. However, Citigroup has changed their tune, and they predict gold to drop below $3,000 in 2026. But anyway, let's have a look. Let's start off with gold as we're talking about it. Okay. Like I say, in my mind's eye, even though the safe haven appeal is dropping slightly, it's still holding around the $3,368 the level. If the safe haven status was really gone, then it would be under a lot more pressure. Okay, and like I say, we can see that when we look at the currencies again with the dollar as well, because in my mind's eye, though yes, okay, yeah, the lure or the desire for the yellow metal is waning slightly, and yes, we are likely set for a week of losses, and when we're down for the week, what's 0.48%, it's still in my mind's eye, it's still in that bullish territory. So it hasn't changed dramatically as of yet, in my opinion. And the other thing, which again, a lot of people aren't talking about, is the number of central banks building up on their gold reserves. There's big demand for it by central banks as they're looking to replace some of their dollar assets with yellow metal. And like I said as well, like Powell said, we haven't seen the true effect of tariffs yet. So we don't really know. So then that's where the yellow metal might come in. But for now, this week, it looks like, yes, it will indeed close out the week in losses. Oil, okay, has been the same again. Like I say, we are trading around a 5-month high. Currently trading at $73 a barrel, below obviously where we spiked when this initial conflict started. If we look at the market as well, the market of the S&P 500 has been open now for the last 24 minutes or so, slightly up, just around about 6,000 points. Again, it's pretty sideways today, which is understandable because it's catching its breath with all the drama. Same with the NASDAQ as well, up slightly. If we look at the currencies, the euro, we've seen a bit of dollar strength this week against a single currency, but we still are very, very sideways, currently trading at 115. Same with the British pound, who had some negative data this week, trading below 135. Don't forget the heights it did actually touch 136, but now we are seeing a little bit more of a dollar strength on that. And finally, the dollar yen as well. Again, you see, fight to the dollar. So that's safe haven. Again, this is why I'm saying I'm not debating that the safe haven run for gold is completely finished. Safe haven, the dollar is still maintaining it where it's trading at 145 as well. Anywho, let's move on to next week. Quickly, got a big week ahead of us next week. We have EU manufacturing PMI, US manufacturing PMI. Powell testifies to Congress for 2 days. US GDP and UK GDP and US PCE. So a lot of information to come out next week, and plus, obviously, more drama in reference to Israel and Iran and these trade deals. Are we going to get any sort of information on trade deals next week? Don't forget, you can talk to me anytime you wish, anytime at all, or ask me questions, or let me know your opinions Let me know what you think, etc. And that's the whole point of these live shows, is so that you can share with me what you think, etc. And like I say, if you're watching me on YouTube and you like this sort of thing, you like this sort of content, subscribe if you like, hit the notification button so you know next time I'm going live. And if if you like this sort of stuff and you like me put up with me, my overall top enthusiasm for the markets, by all means, give me one of these. It's nice to know that you like what I do. As well as that, another point, if you're not part of the OneRoyal family and you're interested to know more about us, there's a little link in the description below. By all means, click it and have a look at us. By all means, join the family if you'd like to. The other thing I want to mention, I do notice a lot of people go back and watch the recordings, which is great. I love all types of support. It's brilliant. And if you are going back watching the recordings and you have a question or you have a comment, put it in the comment section below. I will see it and I will reply to it next time I go live on air, which is practically almost every single day. Okie dokie. In that case, if there is no questions, don't forget. I got one more. Sorry. Let me start my little wrap up again. It's been a long day. Forgive me. Anyway, so if there is no questions, not a problem. Leaves me to say, don't forget, these little videos are for educational purposes only. And in no way whatsoever should we be taking this financial advice. I always suggest you do your own research, do your due diligence. And of course, there's risks at hand before entering any trade. Till next time, every single one of you, trade safe.